All right. So again, and I'll get started. If we do have the one last person come in, I'll just kind of let them in at that time. So this class tonight, of course, is Dual Tournaments 102. We're going to kind of take what we went through in Dual 101 and kind of add to that. We are going to we're still going to be printing. We're not going to do electronic bouts. Those electronic bouts courses start next week. So for if you guys are interested in that, be sure to check that. I think there's 2 next week and 2 the week after that focus on electronic bouts. And so what we're going to do is we're going to run through the items that, oh, there's our last person. And I'll just kind of keep going, and when she comes in, I'll welcome her, I guess. We're going to kind of run through the items that we covered before, kind of real quickly, kind of skim over them. The main difference in this course is going to be multiple brackets, or multiple charts. So a more complex type tournament with maybe more tournaments or just a little more creative setup to it. So I guess what we'll do is we'll just kind of keep going here. I am logged into my Dual Tournaments 102. So you've already ordered your tournament and you guys know how to do that. The to-do list is actually going to be the same as it would be in if you were just using one chart, or obviously what we used in our last course. You probably have imported some settings, and I'm gonna import again tonight just a couple of things just to speed up the process. But I do want to touch on deadlines. So and you also would have, of course, gone through your settings. If we go to Setup and Settings, not a lot of settings in dual tournaments, some pretty basic ones. The same thing applies here as in other tournaments. If you're not seeing something in the menu, a lot of times it's because the flag hasn't been flipped here.
You what?
In deadlines, though, if I click deadlines, I think, Heather, are you with us now?
We got you. Thank you.
Okay, great. All right. I'd let the other folks know it's a smaller group tonight, so I'm leaving the mics open. So if there's a lot going on in the background, I may kind of change that plan. But with a smaller group,
I've got a whole house full of kids. So sorry.
Oh, you do? That's okay. That's all right. I think I will then, as long as everybody's okay with that. Again, knowing that just as with other courses, I'll stick around as long as we need at the end to answer those questions. So I appreciate you letting me know there. So I'll go ahead and shut them down now, unless anybody has a question real quick. All right. Okay, so I'm back on my own here with the mics, but again, thank you for letting us know that. That way everybody can hear just fine. We're kind of, just to bring you up to speed, kind of went through the differences. The main the main difference between 101 and 102 is going to be the multiple brackets and a few other items, but using multiple charts to set up your tournament. And so we're kind of up to the point where we're going to look at deadlines. And the deadlines, of course, are important if you want your statisticians to bring in the rosters, so you don't have to type any of those in. And so there's really 2 deadlines in any dual tournament. And we covered this in the last one, but I think these do get confused a little bit. The first one, obviously, is just going to be when you're going to release information to public, and that's pretty straightforward. But the lockout statisticians one is basically you're going to create a window of time for those statisticians to enter their information about the rosters. And again, as we talked about before, a statistician is nothing more than a person, a representative from a team or a school who's going to get a login and a password, and they're going to be able to enter the rosters for you. So again, it saves a lot on data entry. And if you're not comfortable or familiar with that, be sure to either ask or either tonight or at another time, just to make sure that you guys know how to use those. And basically, teams are going to be allowed to make changes to the rosters up until this date is changed. And again, of course, you just kind of click on them. You can change the date and time from there. The next step as we get going, and one of the first steps here, is going to be to add teams. And this is going to be the same, but if I go in the setup and click teams, real simple, I'm just going to add my team, and I'll just do my Kellner team as I have in the past. Tab, put that in there. I can select the state that I need to, and I would go ahead and add. So I would just, of course, continue to add those in there. I'm going to import those to speed things up tonight. And you could do that if you've run a tournament in the past too. The one thing we want to do next is add our charts. So I'm going to click from this Teams page. So if we're not there, I can go to Setup and Teams, bring me back to where I was, and I'm going to go ahead and add a chart. And I do want to point out that all dual tournaments must have at least one chart. That's how the teams are going to get placed and move through, and so how you're going to determine who's the champion and things like that. And actually, most tournaments are only going to have one chart. But when you have a more complex bracketing system and you want to do some more things, possibly with more teams, but not necessarily just because of more teams, you'll do multiple charts. And this is what we'll do. So I'm going to add one called, actually what I'm going to do, and I apologize, I don't have this document open. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to find, I do have a document here that I'm going to bring open for you. So bear with me real quickly. I did think I had this open, and I do not. And if I can find, sorry about this, guys. Okay, so I have a Word document that I'm opening here, and this is basically, it's kind of just a kind of an overview of what my tournament's going to look like. So as an overview of this Dual Tournaments 102, I have 24 teams coming. I'm going to put them in 4 pools. I'm going to use 6 teams in each pool and have them wrestle a round robin, so they each get 5 duels. And so this might be a 2-day situation, could be more than 2 days, but I'm kind of visualizing this as a 2-day tournament. Again, 24 teams total, and we're putting 6 teams in each of these pools, and I'm going to name them red, blue, white, and green. And this is just a sample. You certainly don't have to name and do it this way. But I'm going to take the placement in the pools, in each of these pools, and I'm going to determine which 4-team line bracket that we're going to place these on. So day 1, let's say, is going to be this 5-duel round robin with the other 5 duels, or 6-team round robin, 5 duels. And then depending on how you place, we're going to put those in a 4-team line bracket. And so my champions, of course, are going to wrestle for 1st through 4th, 2nd place, 5th through 8th, and so on down the line. And my 6th place teams are going to wrestle for 21st through 24th. So everybody is going to be getting 5 on day 1 and then 2 more on day 2. So that's just kind of an overview of how I'm going to do things. And again, we might refer back to that a couple times throughout here. But I'm just going to add a chart. And my first chart, I forgot to type it in there. My first chart I'm going to name the red chart. As you noticed in my little diagram, or my, I guess, layout, I had those as colors. So that would be red, and I would go through with white, blue, and green, I think I had there. And then, of course, then I would go through, and maybe this one would be called championship. Championship. So in a minute, I'm going to import these, but I'll have all of these red links, one for each chart. So in my case, I'm going to have my 4 for my round robins, and then I'm also going to have these 6. So I'm actually going to have 10 total charts for this tournament. So again, all I would do is keep adding those in. I'm actually going to import those in just a minute, so I'm not going to take the time to do all of them. But the next thing I want to do is lay out what bracket type I'm going to use for each of these charts that I have here. So I'm going to come up in my setup and go to bracket types, and I'll click on the red. And for this one, I'm going to use a 6-team round robin because we've already established that's how I want to do things. And I do that. Of course, if I wanted to view a sample, I could click this. These 2 new buttons that appear, Edit Seed Map and Edit Flow Map, we're going to spend quite a bit of time on that tonight, and that's going to be coming up in just a little bit. But then for my championship, I would click that. And of course, on this one, as we already talked about, I'm going to make this a 4-team place 4. And I'll just show you what that one looks like, just to make sure everybody's kind of clear on what the overall scheme of this is. So again, if this were my championship bracket, which it is, I would have my 4 first placers out of the pools, and they're each going to wrestle 2 more matches. So if you win your first, you're going to come out and wrestle in the finals for first and second. If you lose your first, you're going to try and come back for third. So again, just kind of to make sure we're all on the same page and guess the overall picture of my tournament. And then, of course, I would add weight classes. Come and setup and go to weight classes, just like you would in any other tournament. I would add the weight class 106 and continue to add those just on down the line. Again, you guys know how to do that, obviously, and that's a really simple step that we've covered before, but I would just kind of continue down. So one thing I do want to do at this point is show you the rounds page. So if I go to my setup menu and I click on rounds, you'll note that I have my 2 charts here again. If I go to red, this is going to break down how my rounds look, and in a round robin, it's pretty straightforward and simple. Round 1 is going to have bouts 1 through 3. Round 2 is 4 through 6, and so on. So I basically have those in a 16-round robin. There's going to be those 3 bouts per round. So again, always want to take a look at here. Most of the time, you're not going to need to change anything here, but sometimes people want to do that, or maybe there's a good reason to do so. At this point, I'm going to I would add my statisticians and send out the notification emails, and of course that would be in my users under statisticians. And we cover this in the other course, and we do cover this in the predefined course in pretty good detail. If you have questions on that later, certainly we can touch on that. But what I want to do is I want to do some importing just so we can kind of get to the meat of tonight's course. And I'm going to come out here and I'm going to use a tournament called Northern Exposure. So I'm going to search for that, and I'm going to pick this one. And then I'm going to import the teams. So I got a few things that I want to bring in from here. I want to bring in the teams. I'm going to bring the charts just so I don't have to enter all of those to kind of make the tournament run the way that I want it to. I'm going to bring the brackets and the prelims and the weight classes. So right here. So I'm going to take these 4 items and I'm going to import those from this Northern Exposure tournament. It's actually the tournament that I kind of modeled this test tournament that we're doing. So type import, and then now you'll see that I have all of those. And if I go to teams, and this is where you'll notice it the most, you'll notice that I have my teams here, of course, but I also have all of my brackets. So again, here are my 4 pools, and then I have championship, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th. So this is exactly how I wanted it to look. Typing those all in wouldn't have taken a real long time, but certainly if you have a place to import from, that would be a really good thing to do. One other point from here, I guess I can mention here. If I go into the setup menu, there's this link called charts, and what this charts page is basically if you're not sure how to get to something, you can pretty much get to it from here. These little buttons, these radio buttons, you can click on any of them. So let's say, for instance, I wanted to see the bracket type that I have selected for my 2nd bracket. If I click on bracket type, it's going to bring me right to that page. So again, the charts page in the setup menu is a good place to be. This number along the top is going to be the order that you see them. And so let's say, for instance, if I wanted to move all of my pools to the front, if I put this, and I'm not sure why that started with 5, it doesn't matter what number you use, but it is just a sequential issue. So if I wanted this to be at the front, I could click on that number and maybe change it to 1. And that's going to move this over here. I might do that with all of these. But now if I go to my teams page, it's also how they're going to show up in this list. So I don't know that that makes sense for me. Maybe it would for you. But if I go back to charts and I change this order and it looks like that was 11, I'm just going to put it back where it was. So again, you can change the order of this, but the charts page is a good place for you. If you ever get lost, come back here. It's kind of your roadmap to whatever you need. And then what I need to do is edit my seed map. So I could click it from here, or if I come into my setup and I go to bracket types, it's in there, and I click on the championship bracket. And so I'm going to edit my seed map. And so basically, if I do this, click this edit seed map, it's going to kind of show me how these are seeded. And if I actually, you guys, we remember what this bracket looks like, but I'll just bring up a sample real quick. So if I view this sample, we remember here that this bracket is basically 4 teams, and it's, typically you'd go 1, 2, 3, 4. That's how our system is going to default it in. So if I come back and I go to edit seed map, 1, 2, 3, 4 is how this sits. If there was a reason why you wanted to change where those seeds were, and there's lots of reasons why you could change it by just clicking this link, and then I could change this. Maybe I wanted to swap my 3 and my 4. I could do that. I would go ahead and save the map. In my case, I don't really want to do that. 4 and 3, I'm going to keep it just as it was, and I'm going to go ahead and save that map. So if you ever come here and you see that these boxes are here, that means that some editing has been done here. So that's how you edit the seed map. Again, you don't have to do that. In most cases, you won't have to do that. But if there ever is a case where you want a team to land on a particular line and it's not the way that we drew it up for you, you can come in here and do that. The next item, if I go back into bracket types, and of course I can get there from my setup menu or from the charts page, but if I come in here and I want to edit my flow map, and basically just to describe what this is, a flow map is going to automatically move teams from one chart to another once the first chart is done and the placement is known. So if I go back and look at my diagram, and I talk a lot about planning in these things, and I think that's really important. Remember what I said was that out of these pools, I have a specific chart that they're going to, and I don't want to go and hand place those teams in there. What I really want to do is once this bracket is done, these brackets are done, I want the teams to fall directly into the line brackets. And that's what a flow map is. We're mapping out how our teams are going to move from one chart to another based on how they finish in the first chart. And I'm on my brackets types page in the setup menu. And then all I'm going to do is click on, I'm going to use the blue chart for this actually. So if I go to blue, and this is going to tell me the championship bracket, how do I describe this? The first charts are the ones you're going to set up the flow maps for. Because I'm going to say, where are they going to go from here? So I'm going to go, I'm on my blue chart, I'm going to click Edit Flow Map, and it brings up this page right here. Oh, and actually, this one actually it already has this done. So I'm going to delete out this bracket and then add it back. So if I go to teams, I'm sorry about that. This one when I imported it already had this chart in there. So if I go to blue, and I'm going to delete this bracket and just add it back in. Importing works really well, better than I really wanted it to there. Oops, delete bracket. Must have typed it wrong. And, oh, I'm sorry, delete chart. Delete, so I'm going to delete the entire chart. So the bracket, so if I come back here and show you what I did there and the mistake that I made, I was deleting, so if I go to teams, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was deleting the, if I go to like the sixth bracket, I was deleting the bracket. It wasn't even built. The actual chart is the chart that I wanted to get rid of. So that's the mistake that I was making there. So I want to add that blue one back in. So again, teams, I go to add chart, call it blue. And again, we already did this, but now when I come into this blue, which is down here now, I come into the blue and go to my bracket types in the blue, and right back to where we wanted to in the first place. If you remember, this one was a 16 round robin. And then now I go to edit my flow map. You'll notice that this is what yours is going to look like in the first place. And again, the importing worked almost too well for me there. But now I want to create the flow map right here. And on the blue chart, I'm going to add an entry, and I'll do this for each of them. And I'm going to say that my first place on the blue chart is going to the championship bracket. And we're going to say that this is the 1 seed. And this is where your seed mapping might come into play. I'll add another entry for my second place, and I'll do this, first through sixth. Second place, of course, is going to the second bracket. And if this were my tournament, I would probably just keep them all the 1 seed coming out of the blue. All the red might be the 2 seed. But you might have a different way of doing that. In the tournament that I'm kind of importing from, this is how they did that. They went 1-4, 1-4, 1-4. So I'm just going to follow that just so all the brackets line up. But I just continue on down here and take care of all of my brackets. So my third placer, of course, is going to the third bracket. My fourth placer is going to the fourth bracket. And they were fourth seed. And again, the seeds you can put wherever you want. I think an easier, more simple way is probably to have them all going, to the same spot in each bracket. Fifth is going to the fifth bracket, and they're going to be a 1 seed. And finally, the sixth placer out of here is going to the sixth bracket, and they're going to be the 4 seed. And so now you'll see that I have my seed map here. If I went to any of the other charts, so if I went to go to bracket types, and let's say I look at my red chart, you'll notice that this flow map was already here too because it's already done. And you would see that, again, they went 2-3, 2-3. So that's just kind of how this tournament set it up, and I needed to kind of mimic what they're doing. So that's what the flow map is. That's how you go ahead and add that. And again, this is going to say first place on my championship bracket, first place out of the red, going to the championship bracket, they're going to be the 2 seed. So at this point then, I can go ahead and copy right over to testing, and we'll build our brackets. So I'm going to come over here to import settings, come way down to the bottom, click here. And then, of course, as you know, this is just going to take whatever I have here on the live site and put it over on the testing site for me to practice. So that just takes a second to get over there. And once we get there, then we're going to enter kind of random wrestlers, and then go ahead and build our brackets. I will note that at this point in your tournament, you're probably going to be out here monitoring, making sure teams are entering their roster. So if I come over actually to this tournament on the live site, again, this is the one we're mimicking, during the week of my tournament, I want to be monitoring. So if I come into the setup menu, go to users and statisticians, on this page is where you'll see all those statisticians. And then over here is the time and date that they logged in last. So I want to make sure, and I would check to make sure the rosters are getting in there. So on the testing site, I'm going to search for my tournament and log back in as an admin. And then I'm into the tournament. And so on the testing side, an easy way for you to, you'll notice that I don't have any wrestlers in here. So I'm going to come over into my left menu. Actually, I'm going to fill the weight classes first because I don't have. If I go to wrestlers, you'll notice that there are no wrestlers. I want those unknowns, and you won't actually do this on the live site, but on the testing site you have to. If I go to the wrestlers page and I fill the weight classes, I click go, it's going to add that unknown slot for everybody. And then now, because I'm on the testing site, I can come into operations, and I'm going to fill the unknowns. And I want to replace all the unknowns with random data. So if I come here now and I look at my wrestlers, I have all these wrestlers and records and things like that, which may or may not make a difference for you in a dual tournament, but at least it shows kind of how you can do that. And of course, as we get closer to the tournament, make sure you're testing things out. You get the right printers and your internet connection is good and all of those things. And then on the day of the tournament, there's a few things you'll print as coaches walk through the door. In the registration menu, there's kind of 3 items that are probably good. If I go to registration and printing and I do the team roster, I can select any one team or I can do all of them. So if I click go here, it's just going to make this list, and it's a way for coaches to double check to make sure they have their rosters right. The other thing that I would do probably is print a weigh-in sheet. So in registration, printing, and the weigh-in sheet, I could change all of these things. I covered this in the other class too, but if I wanted to have a place for actual weight, for your actual weigh-ins, I could do that. I would select that from this drop-down, come to view weigh-in sheet, and then now I'd have this box. Some states use a specific form that's mandatory. Other states can kind of use that weigh-in sheet or some other method, but just know that that's there. And so those are really, I suppose, the 2 things that you would print for a dual tournament. Any roster changes that need to be made, a really easy way in dual tournaments is just to go to the teams page, and I pick a certain team, and I can click on them, and then I could find that wrestler from there. And of course, I would just click on them and make that change from there. So teams page is a good place in dual tournaments to make roster changes. And then I'm going to go ahead and build my brackets. And I'm going to do this by going back to the teams page. I can do that in any of these menus. Probably I'm in the bracketing menu now, but from teams, I'm going to come here, and then all I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the blue bracket, and I want to pick my teams that are in this bracket. There are no teams here yet, so I'm going to add teams to chart. And so what I would probably do from here is I'd probably have some sort of seating system or way to separate these teams, and I would just go through and use my control key and go down and take whichever ones that I want. For my tournament, I'm just going to pick the top. I'm just going to kind of place them in here. So I'm going to go, the top 6 are going to go on the first chart, and I think I got that right through Clintonville, yep. And I'm going to add them. And then all I'm going to do then from here is add teams to the white chart. So add teams. And I apologize, there's no real quick way to do this, but 2, 3, through Marquette. I finished, I add those teams. Go to my green chart, add teams to chart, and I'm going to start with Medford. And I'm going to go through this new London team. I'll finish and add those. And finally, the red chart. Add the teams. It's going to be the last team, of course, and then up through Oconto Falls. Oh, I could have held the shift key there, and that's what I intended to do, but I did not hit the right one. And then now I have my teams all added to the chart. So what I would do at this point is, if maybe I wanted to seed a couple of these, maybe Pittsville would be the top seed and Two Rivers might be the 2 seed. All in a round robin, it's just going to keep them apart till the last round, but maybe I would seed the top 2 and I would go ahead and build my bracket. And if I view this, you'll see that they got created. Now, I'm going to go through and kind of quickly build my other ones, and I'm just going to build them. And I don't really care where anybody lands. You would probably take a little more time doing this than I would, but on a testing site, you might just do it this quickly too. And now all of the brackets are built. Of course, these 6 brackets aren't built because we don't know who's there yet. And again, at this point, I would probably go to printing and print my brackets from here. If I was printing Bout sheet, and you notice that I can select one or one of those to print. If you want to print Bout sheets, you could print those from here. Sometimes you don't use Bout sheets for these because you don't know who's in the matches. And then I would just go ahead and enter my bouts. So in operating, I'd go to my bout schedule. I'm sorry, into bout entry. And I would pick a chart. So let's say we're going to work with the blue chart. Again, you always got to specify which one we're in. I could adjust the starting weight class if I needed to. And then I would choose my wrestler. So I'd click on 120. I could pick whoever this wrestler would be. And again, because we only have 14, I'm just going to leave them the way they are. Pick my winner, pick my win type, and I'll put in a pin time maybe of 36 seconds. And I go ahead and save that, and I would continue on down the line. Of course, if I need to make a change, I would just go back and click whichever one, a completed match, and that's just fine to do. Maybe that was, 56 seconds. And I could save that, and that would update. And you'll notice, of course, that the team points are here for each particular match, and also down in the totals as well. And then you just kind of continue throughout your tournament. A good way to practice is to go ahead and just enter random bouts here. So I'm going to come back in my left menu on the testing site and go to operations. And you should be getting comfortable with that part of the program by now. And I'm going to enter bouts. And what I want to do is I want to number the first 15. So I really want to get through and show you how the flow mapping works. So I'm going to enter the bouts. Oh, and I need to do that with each of these. So I'm going to do that with the red. Done without errors. I'm also going to do that with the green. I'm going to enter. And again, this is just simulating all of those pool bouts, or that day 1 bouts, I suppose, if you want to think of it that way. And blue, I think I didn't do yet. So I enter those. And that's okay. And so a way to check this, and as you go through your tournament, if I come through and I look at the bout schedule, and some of you have seen something like this from, guess those aren't down there. So I'll show you in just another way. So if I go to the championship bracket here, and I look at, if I go to charts, and I want to look at the bracket for the championship bracket, I can go ahead and view this, and you'll notice now that these automatically got put on there. So I didn't have to go through and add those, and that's what that flow mapping was. Obviously, Appleton East was a champion, just as the Grizzlies and Medford and Two Rivers. And the same would be true if I went to any of these other brackets. These would all be built as well, because I have all of my results in from my pool matches. And so that's how the flow mapping works. So of course that's much easier than figuring it out and entering those by hand. So the flow map is really, really important stuff here, and it's really the biggest focus of kind of more complex tournaments. A couple quick items before I open this up to questions. In the setup menu, of course, this is where you set up your team scoring if you needed to change any of these things. If you need to adjust team points, I can do that back on my Bout entry page. So I'm over in operating, and I'm going to come back to Bout entry. And let's say that we're in the, I don't know, we'll go in the 4th bracket because all of these have a bunch of matches. Actually, we don't have results there yet, so I'll go to the green bracket. I could also pick the duel that I want to work with from this bracket from right here. So let's say it's in this duel. And if I needed to adjust my team points, I would click here. And maybe the point came from Merrill, and it's a -1, and the reason was misconduct or whatever it might be. And I go ahead and add that. And you'll notice that it gets added here, and it also subtracts that team point for you. So if there's ever a situation like that, that's for sure where you would go ahead to check that out. A few things that you can print from here as well. If I go into my printing menu and I go to tournament results, this is kind of a neat thing to print. I don't have results or any matches entered in my championship brackets or any of these place brackets. But if you come down to, say, the red results, it's going to show all the places. It's also going to show all 5 rounds and what the scores of those duels were. So that's a nice thing maybe to print and give to coaches or perhaps even your fans. The other item here to show is in printing. So again, the operating menu, printing, and this one's going to be results by team. And if I bring this over, I'll actually make this a little bigger so it's easier to see. If I wanted to see a results for, let's say, the Grizzlies, I could click that, and this is going to show me each of the, I don't think that's off the screen for you, but just in case, this is going to show me the Grizzlies, each of their 5 rounds that we've already wrestled, and it's going to give a full breakdown, kind of a printed report of all of those matches in those duels. And then finally, this one we get asked about quite a bit in case you're giving out something like maybe undefeated wrestlers or things like that. Again, it's in the operating menu under printing, and if you go to results by weight class, it opens up this kind of a print menu here. And let's say that I want to look at 145. It's going to show me all of the records for the wrestlers at 145. And something a little misleading about my tournament is that we didn't switch around. And as we know, in a real wrestling tournament, in a real dual tournament, you're going to have wrestlers wrestling up and down, and you're going to be using different guys. You can choose to either include all matches in the record or just the matches that were at that weight class. In our case, it's not going to change it, but in your case, in a real tournament, that definitely will make a difference. So this is where you can go to find out, maybe your undefeated wrestlers, maybe you give awards for that or something like that. The last thing I want to show here is an operating and printing, and then the tie-breaking summaries. And so there's 2, I guess, probably one main thing to look at from here. Let's say that we had a tie, and I don't know if we had any ties in these meets, but let's just say, for instance, this Badger versus Appleton East, that was a tie, and I wanted to see how that tie was broken. This is kind of a breakdown of how all the things in the match went, all the scoring, any penalties. So the dual wins, this is only because Appleton East had more points than Badger, so they get the dual win. And then this is driven by the tie-breaking criteria that you've set up. And that's over in the setup menu. And then if I go into tie-breaking, and of course we're breaking the tie for a dual meet, and this is where this comes from. And this is set up based on the National Federation rules. If you wanted to change these, you could. You can select on or off these. Maybe you didn't want penalty points to be factored in, or maybe you wanted to move them up or down. In our case, the first criteria is going to be the least team penalty points. So if somebody has a team penalty point, the other team is going to win, and we all know that that's probably the case. If a team gets a penalty point, they're probably losing on a tiebreaker. But then on down the line, so you can add or edit this however you would need to. So, and again, the way to find out how that happens and decide is in printing under tie-breaking summaries, and you can go to any duel that you want from there. So So those are kind of the main topics, the big things. I'm sure there's a few questions, so I'm going to open those mics back up. Before I do, I again want to thank everybody for joining. I know we have a small group, but these classes we've had a real good response to, and it seems like people are enjoying them. And on our side of it, we do appreciate that you guys are putting in the time and the effort. It definitely helps us and for you guys to know what you're doing out there and to take the time to try and learn a little bit. So I'm going to open up the mics right now and take the question. So if you do have questions, great. If anybody needs to get going, that's just fine. But again, I'm here to answer questions. Always know that the ticket system and our phone lines are open too if you guys need any help during the week or on tournament day for that matter. So.
Diane here.
Yeah.
Is there any way to get any kind of notes? In other words, can we go back into this testing site, say you set it up as worker, for us to go on there and make copies, print out copies just for, because I'm a paper girl and I'm a note girl.
Okay. Are you saying?
Maybe I would go back to the testing site and pull up this duels tournament 102, and is there any way I can get to that and then print out some of the stuff from my own, binder or whatever? Oh,
you mean like from this tournament specifically?
Correct. Just how you had the championship, 4th round, 5th round, 6th round, and then your red, blue, white, green teams and stuff like that.
Right.
So I had a paper trail of how it was done, and I can write my own notes on that.
Let me think about that. Not necessarily in this tournament, only because we use it for other trainings. I can't get you in here.
Right. Right.
You can view it, so you could see it that way. The other thing you could do too is if you had a dual tournament that you're running, or if you have one coming up, you could order it and take it to the testing site. You could import settings from this one.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So that might be a solution for you. The video is going to be there too, so you can go back to it and kind of see what we did. But I understand what you're saying. You want to poke around a little more. Unfortunately, I can't let you do it here only because we use it for other purposes. But again, I think importing from it might not be a bad idea. The other, again, the name of the actual tournament that I kind of mimicked this from was that Northern Exposure tournament too. So you could always kind of take a peek around there, and that one's complete, of course. So there's all results and stuff in there too. So.
Did everybody else leave?
No, I think as far as I know, they look like they're still here.
Okay. I don't want to bog up all the time asking questions.
maybe they stepped away too. So, does anybody else have questions? Otherwise, Diane, just go ahead and let them rip.
Nobody else?
Nope. Go right ahead.
I'm taking off, Shane. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Thank you. And remember, I'll have this up online tomorrow on the video with the video too. So, thanks a lot.
Sounds good. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay.
All right.
Still on?
I don't think it's Heather. I think that was they sign in as Heather, and there's another person there. So I think, Dan, what I'll probably do is I think I'll just stop the recording, and you and I can just stay on. I'll answer the questions for you. Does that sound okay?
That's fine.